Good morning, friends. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of PB Reads the Bible. I'm PB, the pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church, and it's wonderful to be with you this morning. Wonderful to be together this morning. That's probably the best way to put that, isn't it? Wonderful to be together, even though we're apart in some ways. This is another episode of PB Reads the Bible. We've been doing this for quite a while now. So I don't know what total number episode it is, but it's episode 4 on our journey through the book of Judges. We're going to be in Judges for several weeks. Today's Thursday, so it finishes up our first week. Excuse me, of Judges. Perhaps it's an odd time to take them, but I do have. Tomorrow is my Sabbath, so we don't usually do it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll be back Monday with chapter 5, even though chapter 5 and chapter 4 have a connection to them. But we'll talk about that on Monday. And next week, I really prefer to do these live so that we can have that interaction. And I'm going to talk about interaction. But next week, there's going to be 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, which we will have to do through a pre-recorded video, a recorded video for you on Wednesday and Thursday. Not a big deal, I will record them probably on Tuesday. So when you see me on Tuesday and then you see me on Wednesday and Thursday, I'll probably be wearing the same clothes all 3 days. It's not because I'm wearing the same clothes all 3 days. It's just because 2 of those days are recordings. Anyway, when we're live and when it's recorded, go ahead and check in, because all I see is a number of how many people are watching or how many people have watched. Let me know who you are. So go ahead and check in, say hello, say good morning to me, to each other, all that kind of stuff. You can also use that comment section to leave comments or to ask questions. And you can do any of those things also by sending me a message, 570-351-1619. So when I'm looking to my left, I'm checking on the computer screen, the monitor, to see what you're saying or doing. And if I look to my right, it's because I'm checking out my phone to see what's going on there. Need to get a little more comfortable there. Yeah, that's better. Now I won't be sliding down so much in my chair, but I still have to rock. So we're going to be looking at chapter 4. But good morning, Cheryl. Hi. John and Cindy. Hi. Good morning. Good morning, Marilyn. Hi. Good to see everybody this morning. A couple prayer things to touch on this morning. First of all, Jake is having his hip replacement surgery today. In fact, 5:37. I think 9:30. I think in like 20 minutes. Half hour is when his surgery should be starting. That's when he's scheduled for anyway, unless something comes up down there at the hospital. He is in Baltimore. But it's anticipated to be a outpatient surgery that he will be going home sometime this afternoon. But let's keep him and Colleen in prayers about that. For the surgery, for being able to get out, prayers for their safety as they travel along as well. Good morning, Maureen. Good to have you here on time. So keep Jake in your prayers today. Now, Mildred, who we had spoken about, 99 and a half years old. At that point, we can round it up, right? I think once you reach a certain age, when you're a kid, you like to round up numbers, and then in the middle ages, maybe you pull back, you round down, but then you reach a certain point where you want to start rounding up again. So let's round up for Mildred and say she's 100. She did have that knee surgery yesterday to replace the knee replacement she had previously had because she broke the bone in her leg. Was texting anyway with Shirley that to see how things went. Surgery went well. They had some issues because they didn't have the right size knee, apparently. but they were able to make things work. They were able to make things work. So Shirley, thanks you for your prayers for Mildred, and I would ask that they continue. Let's keep praying for her and for Shirley. I'm not sure if Shirley is already out there in Arizona, if she took off and went there. I think she already did. And her mom is asking her to stay there extra long. So prayers for Shirley as she's away from home and here and going to be asked to maybe do some things that she probably has a little bit of physical issues trying to do herself. So keep all that in our prayers. Good morning, Pat. Yes, it is another beautiful morning. Love that sunshine. Love that sunshine. Although I could see people come. Fortunately, I had the sun at my back as I was driving this morning, but I could see people as they were driving with the sun towards them, trying to shade their eyes even with sunglasses. It's bright out there. So if you're out and about, please protect your eyes. It's very important. Very important. All right, that's enough of that. The only announcements would be, of course, worship on Sunday. Join us 8:15 and 10:45 in person. 10:45 is also live streamed if you needed to join us online, which is wonderful. We're glad we're able to do that. Excuse me. All right. So Judges chapter 4. We get into the next Judges here, next stories of Judges. Now, remember, the very last verse of chapter 3 was about a judge, Shamgar. And I said that when they used these minor judges, it also serves to signify a change and between the major, quote unquote, major judges in their behavior and in their success and how things go. And so every time there's one of those breaks with the minor judges, we know that the spiraling downwards is continuing and perhaps even picking up pace. So we're going to see that in this next section. It's a little subtle. It's a little subtle, but we're going to talk about some of it. We're going to talk about some of it. So this chapter, this story, or these stories, it's one story, but it's got several different components to it, sub-stories. It's very dramatic, very dramatic. If for no other reason, then it's filled with tension. TNT used to have, the TV station TNT used to have that as part of their explanation for drama, the tension. And that's true. Tension can make things very dramatic. Tension can make things very dramatic. And this story has lots of tension built into it, has lots of ambiguity. That's even the better word. And that ambiguity builds the tension because you're not sure what's happening. In most of the judges' stories, and in the judges' stories so far, it's very obvious who the judge, who the deliverer is. It's like the first person you encounter and is named Othniel. Boom, you knew it. Ehud. Boom, you know it. Shamgar, even though it's only a verse, you know he's the judge, the deliverer. So this next story becomes a little confusing and a little ambiguous because of it. That's one of the ways in which it is ambiguous. It's not 100% clear who the judge / deliverer is, or if there even is one judge / deliverer. Maybe there's not. So let's read. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh after Ehud died. So Yahweh sold them into the hand of King Jabin of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harashath HaGolim. When the Israelites cried out to Yahweh for help, then the Israelites cried out to Yahweh for help, for he had 900 chariots of iron and had oppressed the Israelites cruelly 20 years. Pause. So this is starting to set up the tension and it sets a few different things as far as context. It's ambiguous again because of this King Jabin. He's not an important character. we might think he is because he's king. Excuse me. We might think he's an important character because he's king, but this is, I don't even know if he's mentioned through the rest of the chapter. The main bad guy is actually Sisera. The main bad guy is actually Sisera. Now, King Jabin, there is a King Jabin who is mentioned in Joshua. So some scholars say, well, this is just that story being reinterpreted and retold with different parts to it. Other scholars say, well, they certainly could have had more than one King Jabin. It may have been a family name. It may have been what they called their kings. They could have, when you become king, your name changes to Jabin, as does happen in some cultures and some places. In Britain, for example, the monarch is asked what their name is going to be as they rule, and of course, the Pope changes their name when they become Pope. So that's all of that is possible. The thing is, it doesn't matter because he really doesn't matter. Sisera becomes the main bad guy and the important part of this story. However, there isn't a phrase in here that's pretty important. I'm sorry, Jabin is mentioned one more time as he in the next section, but again, he's not super important. What is important in this part is that mentioning of 900 chariots of iron. 900 chariots of iron. Why is that important? Well, it signifies a couple different things. We're talking about it tells us the time period. This is the beginning. This is the ending of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age. So it's 1200. It's between 1000 and 1200 BC is when this is taking place, because now iron is being used. But this signifies the wealth and power of Jabin and his kingdom, and he's a big king in Canaan, is how this would sound. Iron is not cheap because it's brand new, and he's got 900 chariots of iron. So we are talking, we're talking brand new military technology. These are stealth bombers. These are smart missiles, smart bombs, whatever you want to call them, of their day. These are fighter jets. These are super tanks, whatever way you want to describe them. That's what 900 chariots of iron indicates. So it indicates the wealth and power of the king and the kingdom. The fact that it's made out of iron rather than bronze gives us that time period. Also has another important fact. So keep this in your memory. And how many they have. This is just, they're a superpower. They're a superpower. Continuing, at that time, Deborah, a prophetess, wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel. Okay, so we've got Deborah. She's the first Israelite mentioned. She must be the judge for this section. She must be the deliverer for the people of Israel. Sounds that way, right? First one to be mentioned. Cool. And she was judging Israel. In this case, literally judging Israel, serving to decide things. We know that because the next verse, continuing, she used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites came up to her for judgment. Pause. I know I'm pausing a lot in this book, in this chapter, aren't I? Again, it's mentioned. Oh, good morning, hon. Again, it's mentioned that she is a prophet. She's a prophet. Very rarely is a woman identified as a prophet. Judges I'm going to say Judges is very woman oriented, and I don't want to say too much because we're going to get to a point where we need to talk about it. But it seems that how women go, so go the nation. How women go, so go the nation. How women are treated exemplifies the state that Israel is in. We have had a couple different women mentioned by name. Aksha, the daughter of Caleb, and we talked about her, and she's bold and brave, and she did some things, and father treated her well, family treated her well. We've got Deborah here, who's highly respected, identified as a prophet, and is serving as a judge. They're trusting her judgments in things. So she's important. So again, we think, oh, she must be the deliverer. She sent and summoned Barak, son of Abinoab, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, Yahweh, the God of Israel, commands you, go, take position at Mount Tabor, bringing 10,000 from the tribe of Naphtali and the tribe of Zebulun. I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you by the Wadi Kishon with his chariots and his troops, and I will give him into your hand. Pause. Ah, Barak must be the judge. He must be the deliverer, because God has spoken to Deborah and she's called him and given him this message. He's going to be the one that's going to deliver Israel. We were wrong when we were thinking it was Deborah. But then we have this next part. Barak said to her, if you will go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. And she said, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the road on which you are going will not lead to your glory, for Yahweh will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. Pause. Wow, this is confusing. And this is going to be confusing, especially to the first readers. And if you've read this story before, you know how it goes. But pretend you don't. And if you're reading the NIV, it's translated a little bit differently. That's because the Hebrew is very ambiguous. And the NIV went one way and the NRSV went a different way. And other translations do the same thing. This sounds like we're not sure. Is Barak concerned? Is he doubting? Is he being a coward and saying, well, I'll only go if you go with me? Is that what he's saying? Or is he saying, since you're the prophet of God and I want you to go with me because I want you to bless our troops? That's another way in which this could be understood. Not translated word for word, but it could be understood that way if we translate it as sort of a better thing. So both are okay. Those both translations, both understandings of this passage are acceptable because of the ambiguity in the Hebrew. Likewise, for Deborah's answer can be, oh, sure, of course I'm going to go along with you. And just adding on to the message saying, however, this isn't punishment for your doubting, but just wanted to also let you know, don't get your hopes up. God's not going to give Sisera into your hand. God's going to give Sisera into the hand of a woman. Again, a woman. Now the NIV translates it differently and puts it on, fine, I'll go along with you, you coward. However, know this, because you're doubting my word, because you're doubting the power of God, God's not going to give Sisera over to you. A woman is going to get him instead. Both can be there. The ambiguity might be on purpose. Heightening that tension and that drama. What's going to happen? So let the ambiguity live. Be comfortable with not knowing exactly which way Barak was trying to say it and which way Deborah was replying. Okay? And who is the woman whose hand Sisera is going to be delivered into? We start to think, oh, it must be Deborah. Since she's going along and she's this prophet of God, she must be going to be the deliverer. Then Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and 10,000 warriors went up behind him, and Deborah went up with him. Now, Heber, the Canaanite, pause a moment. So again, we're not seeing that she's going up because of his doubt, whether or not it was doubt. This is just a matter of fact, things are going well. He calls out to the troops and they join in. 10,000 warriors. What's going to happen next? Verse 11. Now Heber, the Kenite, had separated from the other Kenites, that is, the descendants of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, and had encamped as far away as Elon Bezananim, which is near Kadesh. Pause. This is weird. Why is the author sticking in this rather bizarre and oblique and confusing little passage about this person? What's going on? A few things. And a few things that can still be very ambiguous. We're not sure. The reader doesn't know. Now, the Kenites, remember the Kenites, we spoke about them the other day, are descendants of Moses's father-in-law, whatever name you want to call him, Jethro, Reuel. He's been called Hobab now in Judges. We don't know what his real name was. He's called all these different things. The Kenites aren't Israelites, but they are welcomed. They are looked upon with favor by the Israelites. They've gotten along well, and they've landed in one place. They've kind of gathered in one place. However, this one, Heber, the Kenite, has separated himself. He and his clan have separated themselves from the rest of the Kenites and moved to this other place, which is near Kadesh. So it's right near where this battle seemingly is going to be taking place, because it's right near where everybody is gathered. So what's going on? Kenites were known, this is possible anyway, this is a possible explanation for why this story is being put in here, because it adds to the confusion. Kenites were known for being workers of iron. Was Hobab a worker of iron for Jabin? Remember, we know that Jabin has all these iron chariots. So, since Hobab left where the other Kenites were and moved to this area, which is closer to Jabin and his kingdom, did he do it because he's now in league with the Canaanites and with Jabin because of work, because of their money, with him making iron? Are they going to be? Is he going to be a traitor to the Israelites? We don't know. We must wait and see. So we read next section. Back to the main story, the main characters. When Sisera was told that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera called out all his chariots, 900 chariots of iron. There's that iron part again. Notice he's calling them his chariots, not Jabin's. And all the troops that were with him, from Harasheth Hagoim to the Wadi Kishon. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Up, for this is the day on which Yahweh has given Sisera into your hand. Yahweh is indeed going out before you." Pause. Wow, more confusion. Now it sounds like Sisera is going to be delivered into Barak's hands. But we thought it was supposed to. So now maybe Barak is the judge, the deliverer. We thought it was going to be Deborah, or maybe some other woman, but we thought Deborah. Now we're thinking Barak again. So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 warriors following him, and Yahweh threw Sisera and all his chariots and all his army into a panic before Barak. Sisera got down from his chariot and fled away on foot, while Barak pursued the chariots and the army to Harosheth Hagoim. All the army of Sisera fell by the sword. No one was left. Wow! Mighty victory. This guy must be the deliverer for Israel. Now, Sisera had fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between King Jabin the Kenite, between King Jabin of Hazor and the clan of Heber the Kenite. Oh, wait a minute. We got another person. We've got a woman. She's a Kenite. She's the wife of this Heber, and there's peace between him and King Jabin. I bet she's going to do something. She's going to be some sort of a traitor to Israel. Jael came out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Turn aside, my lord. Turn aside to me. Have no fear." So he turned aside to her into the tent, and she covered him with a rug. Pause. See what's happening. Imagine what's happening. She's a mother. She's becoming like the mother to him. She's covering him up with a rug, with a blanket. She's got him lying down in her tent. This is like mother and child imagery. Sisera is no longer being a man. He is being a child, and he's being treated as a child. And we would say, it would certainly seem, being taken care of by his mother. So he turned aside to her into the tent, and she covered him with a rug. Then he said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." Well, she's probably going to give him water. So she opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. Water refreshes. Milk is heavier than water, and if you're already tired, milk helps you go to sleep. Especially for a child, especially for an infant. She's now a mother giving her infant child milk. He said to her, "Stand at the entrance of the tent, and if anybody comes to you and asks, 'Is anyone here?' say no." Literally in Hebrew, his question says, if anybody comes and asks you, "Is a man here?" We got a little bit of puns and play on words. We got some satire now, mixing in with all this tension and ambiguity. Is a man here? Say no. And the answer would be no, because he's no longer a man. The story is describing him as an infant, falling asleep after his mother gives him milk and covers him up with a rug. But Jael, wife of Heber, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand and went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple until it went down into the ground. He was lying fast asleep from weariness and from milk and from being in a comfortable place. And he died. Then, as Barak came in pursuit of Sisera, Jael went out to meet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man whom you were seeking." So he went into her tent, and there was Sisera lying dead with the tent peg in his temple. So on that day, God subdued King Jabin of Canaan before the Israelites. Then the hand of the Israelites bore harder and harder on King Jabin of Canaan until they destroyed King Jabin of Canaan. Pause. End of chapter. So, it's a wonderful story filled with drama, filled with action, filled with tension, filled with ambiguity, and even some humor, some satire, and wordplay thrown in at the end. It would seem, especially if we read that Hebrew literally. Now, some scholars, and especially people with certain points of view, so to speak, they also see in that story and in that. Let me back up a sec. So who is the judge? It could be one of three people, or it could be all three people. Is Deborah the judge? We often refer to Deborah as the judge. Well, she was a judge when it came down to deciding who's right and all that kind of stuff, for sure. She's described that way, but she's described as a prophet. Did she serve as the deliverer? Was Barak the judge? Did he serve as the deliverer? Well, he was the leader of that great battle with his 10,000 warriors, defeating all of those soldiers of Sisera. But he wasn't the complete victor, because Sisera got away from him. But Sisera didn't get away from Jael. So maybe Jael is the judge, the true judge and true deliverer of Israel in this story, which would be interesting, because it would be again where God used a non-Israelite to serve as the deliverer of the Israelites. But then again, all three played a part. All three had a role to play. So maybe we see this as not one judge, but three people being used together to fulfill the function of a judge, of a deliverer for the people of Israel. I'm not going to tell you what the answer is because I don't know. You'll probably read some folks that'll say it's definitely this person, definitely that person. And when they say that, hey, if you can say definitively, good for you, but I don't think we can. And if you can say definitively, then perhaps you have a particular slant that you wanted to emphasize. Perhaps you want to make sure that people think it was Barak, that it had to be a man rather than a woman. Maybe you want it to be Deborah because she led it, and you see Barak as being weak and cowardly and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, I don't think we really know. It could be, there's too much ambiguity in the story, and that's good. That's good. It's good to not have a definitive answer. Now, I was going to say that scene, that imagery with Jael pounding the tent peg through the soft temple area of Sisera to kill him is also seen by some, and it can be backed up. Don't say that I agree with this 100%, but it can be backed up, especially when we connect this to chapter 5, because chapter 5 is a song. It's a song about this whole thing. And there's some imagery in the song also that helps to back up this point of view, that we can see this as sort of a reversed role rape. That her murdering Sisera, assassinating Sisera in such a way, has reverse rape kind of into it, with her penetrating his body, with this peg, with a straight hard object. As the women go, so goes the nation. I did, and we're going to see that as the women go, and as the women are treated, as they are treated, we're going to see that's one of the emblematic symbols of how the nation. Not so much, not yet, because these two are still named and are important parts of it, are important parts of the story. And are important parts of the story. And we're going to see in a few chapters, though, that that's not always the case, even when they're named. But so far, they're being treated well. But so they see in this this imagery of rape, and like a reverse rape. And so she's got the power over him, over a man, rather than a man having power over, showing power over women. Because that's all rape is. Rape is never really about sex. It's about power. It's about power. And so that's interesting. It's interesting. And we'll see some of that imagery even more pronounced on Monday when we get to chapter 5. And if you want to go ahead and read chapter 5 between now and then, go for it and look for that kind of imagery and see if you can find some of it. You can be ready with questions and stuff on Sunday. What else was I going to say? And one last thing. I probably should have said this when I was talking about which one's the deliverer, because if you want to think of Jael as the deliverer, which is quite possible, she's the one that ultimately killed Sisera. He wasn't the king, but he was this brutal army commander. We can see in her deviousness, so to speak, the treachery and deceitful way in which she killed him, making him think he was safe, comforting him, giving him stuff. We can see similarities to the way Ehud killed King Eglon, very deceitfully and trickily, and when Eglon thought he was safe. All right. Well, friends, that's going to be enough for today. That's more than enough for today, I think. So we're done for today. I do pray that this time has been beneficial for you. I pray that God has spoken to you in some way, that you've learned something or relearned something, and all that kind of stuff as you go about your days, not just today, but every day. keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open for what our living, loving, active God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say, thank you, Papa, and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed.